All right. You'll have to bear with me here because I'm I'm recovering from illness. But I wanted to talk today about Woe To Live On by Daniel Woodrell. And then I wanted to talk about the movie adaptation by director Ang Lee, Ride with the Devil. So Daniel Woodrell's probably best known for his book Winter's Bone, which was turned into a movie starring Jennifer Lawrence. But he wrote this book back in, I think it was 1987. Um, this book is set during the American Civil War, and it takes place in both Kansas and Missouri. So the Kansas-Missouri border war is what's going on here. Now, this conflict actually started prior to the American Civil War. If you know your American history, that in 1854, the Kansas-Nebraska Act basically was passed, which repealed the Missouri Compromise and opened up the slavery question in the territories to popular sovereignty. So the status of Kansas, whether or not it would be a free or a slave state, was left up to the citizens there. So it was put to vote. And this caused a lot of people to come in from the outside, and it stirred up violence. So the territory there erupted in violence between pro-slavery and abolitionist forces. Now, the pro-slavers would be known as bushwhackers, and the abolitionists would be known as Jayhawkers. And the Jayhawkers primarily operated out of Lawrence, Kansas. So the border there between Missouri, which was a slave state, and Kansas, which was a contested territory, got hot. And this actually started 7 years prior to the breakout of the American Civil War. So yeah, the book and the film both follow a German immigrant. Well, his parents are German immigrants, which is Jake Rodell. He's known as Dutchie. Okay, so his father is a pro-union immigrant, and his mother. But when they move into the territory, they become close friends of the Childs family. So Jake's best friend is Jack Bull Childs. They're basically about the same age, and they've been friends. You know, they're more like brothers than they are friends. They're that close. In the book, now I'm going to talk about differences between the opening of both the book and the film, because it's a major difference. In the book, we get dropped right into the middle of the conflict. Okay, like I think we're like in 1862 or 1863 already. Okay, I think it's 1862. So they've been fighting for a while, and things are pretty bad. Like their introduction to Jake in the book is they're raiding a general store of some pro-union people that are basically aiding and abetting union forces. So they, gun down the store. Well, they actually hang the store owner in the novel. They hang him. In our introduction to Jake Rodell in the book is he shoots a teenage boy in the back who is trying to save his father from hanging. So that's not a very favorable introduction to your protagonist, I mean, like, that's automatically like, ugh, this is grimy, and I'm not so sure if I want to read this, right? Now, in the book versus the film, here's where they differ. In the film, we get introduced to Jake Rodell and Jack Bull Childs. Now, Jake is played by Tobey Maguire in the movie, and Jack Bull Childs is played by Skeech Ulrich. In our introduction here is about a year prior to the opening scene of the novel, right? Where we have a wedding, and These friends, they're having a good time. There's a little bit of tension at the wedding dinner between the families, right? Because there's both pro-Union and pro-Confederate people that are there because they're neighbors with each other. And Abraham Lincoln has just been elected President of the United States. So it's tense. That night after the wedding's, dinner is over and whatnot, Jack Bull Childs, Skeet Ulrich's character, some Kansas City Jayhawkers, these are irregular forces, again, that are pro-Union, that are abolitionists right out of Kansas, cross over into Missouri, and they burn down his father's property, and they murder Asa Childs. So yeah, that's our introduction in the film. So we are more sympathetic towards these people because we've just witnessed like them be brutalized. So then it jumps. The movie has that opening scene, which takes, I think, about 10 minutes in the film, and then it jumps to 1 year later, which is where the book starts. So we get like a prologue in the movie that's absent from the novel. Okay? So I go back to the book. The middle sections of both the movie and the film are pretty much one for one. The dialogue from the book is used almost verbatim in the movie. Although I think the book retains more of the violence. For instance, there's a scene where they capture a bunch of Union soldiers and things don't go so well. And then the whole aftermath of that is explained in more detail in the novel than it is in the movie. We get to see the event in the movie, but we don't see the aftermath of it. So there's expanded scenes in the novel. Jake never shoots a boy in the back and at all in the film, not once. So I would say he's more sympathetic in the film than he is in the novel. Okay, this was a choice that was made by Ang Lee, and I think that it was the right choice. I just think that having a movie that has your protagonist as, pro-Confederate, you might have been able to get away with that back in the 70s with, the outlaw Josie Wales, which, by the way, is kind of the same. That's the Kansas-Missouri border war is depicted in that film too. But I just don't think that it flew with people in '99. That's, I think, why this movie bombed. I don't think this movie, I don't think anybody knew who the audience was for this. I don't think it was advertised well. It didn't do well. So, yeah. But the difference, I think, here is that once you get to the Lawrence, Kansas raid. Now, this is the central, I guess, mega set piece of the film. This was the big action sequence where Quantrell and his raiders, they come into Lawrence, Kansas with a death list to kill all of the Jayhawkers and the men there. And it's an infamous raid in American history. If you want to know more about that, you can research that, look into it. The Lawrence raid took place in 1863, just about a month after the Battle of Gettysburg took place in the East. So, I'm not really going to say too much more about it. I mean, it was pretty brutal. I think I'm not going to say I think. People both in the South and in the North were kind of horrified by the event, okay? Because it's not something that many people would consider honorable at all, because you're attacking unarmed citizens, basically, that can't defend themselves. There were a small contingent of Union forces there, but they didn't stand a chance, and they basically got massacred while they were in their tents. So that scene's depicted pretty. I think that yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. I don't think that this movie and book is going to appeal to everybody. There is a lot of strong language in the book. I think the language, it's still there. I mean, they still use the N word in the film, but I don't think they used that language as much in the movie as they do in the book. So that's something to be aware of. But there is a bushwhacker, which is one of the pro-Confederates, okay? There's a bushwhacker in the book who is a colored bushwhacker. His name is Daniel Holt, and he is played by Jeffrey Wright. Now, you know Jeffrey Wright as Felix Leiter in the Daniel Craig James Bond movies. So he becomes friends with Jake Rodell, and their friendship is kind of the central aspect of both the film and the book, because both of them are outsiders. Because Jake is a Dutchman, all right, he's never fully accepted as one of the Southern men. He's always looked at with suspicion. There's a scene with his father, between Jake and his father in the film at the very beginning, where this is explicitly laid out, where Jake's father tells him, "You'll always be a Dutchman to them. You'll always be an outsider." So as far as the book and the movie are concerned, everything, so we have an alternate beginning, and then everything's pretty much the same until we get to Lawrence, Kansas, and then after Lawrence, Kansas, the book and the movie diverge again. And they both have a different ending. And I think if I was going to say, I prefer the beginning of the movie, and I prefer the end of the book. So they both have their strengths and weaknesses. Again, Jake is more sympathetic in the film because he never shoots. The infamous scene where he shoots a boy in the back never takes place in the movie. But I think that the ending of the novel is better because there's actually gunfire exchanged between Jake and his antagonist, Pitt Mackinson, at the end of the novel. So there you go. I would give both of these a 4 out of 5. I don't think either one of them is perfect because I think both of them have strengths and weaknesses, and I don't find either one of them completely satisfying. I think my main problem with the film here is Jewel Kilcher as Suli Shelley, which is a love interest in the novel. Now, Suli Shelley is pretty gritty. She's described as having like a chipped tooth and a scar on her face. And Jewel doesn't have that. Jewel is much too angelic for the role. And while I do like her in the movie, she just is not the Suli Shelley of the novel. So, yeah, that's a drawback for me. Other than that, I think the book adaptation to film is very well done. The William Quantrell raid is, I mean, you'll probably never see anything quite so, I don't know what to say about it. The movies, the cinematography is beautiful. The movie's both beautiful and horrible simultaneously. I don't know if that makes sense. It's a shame that this flopped. I guess I'm just going to leave it there. Like I said, I don't think that these are for everyone. I know that a lot of people aren't going to like them. They're going to find it off-putting. But as far as the depiction of the Kansas-Missouri border war on film, I think this really captures it. And one thing I'll say about the book is Daniel Woodrell's language is very poetic. There's a lot of really flavorful use of words. For one, there's one line that stuck with me where Jake is calling his companions. He says that they became wizards of unpleasantries. And I was just like, wow, that's really great stuff. Wizards of unpleasantries. And you have all sorts of these, nice phraseology that he uses. Like I said, it's almost like poetry. So it's a very well written book, and perhaps I should check out more Daniel Woodrell novels. I've never read anything else by him, but I have enjoyed this book quite a bit. So I'll just leave it there. because I think I've gone on long enough, and yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it. So, all right, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.